China, if you looked at it, probably got the best deal in these negotiations in Switzerland. They got a lower tariff than had been imposed, and as a result of that, they now know how President Trump is willing to play this game and how far he might be willing to negotiate. So I think for China, this is probably more of a win for that country than for the United States. My name is Terrence Guay, Terrenceguay. I am the director of the Center for Global Business Studies in the Smale College of Business. I teach and do research on international business. I look at investment screening mechanisms and how that affects Chinese investment in countries around the world. What happened with the China trade war is that there was a resolution of sorts between the United States and China. Negotiators for both countries met in Switzerland and decided to reduce the tariffs that had been imposed by both sides. China also significantly agreed to continue to export rare earth metals, which they had restricted for a while. Those are metals that are very useful in everything from the defense industry to electric batteries. So it may be the case where tariffs are just a lot less than they were initially, which both countries can claim as a win. President Trump can say we have higher tariffs than we did before he came to office. China can say that we got President Trump and the United States to reduce tariffs significantly on Chinese goods sent to the United States. I think one of the new things that may develop as a result of this is that the trade policies that the Trump administration is imposing on many countries around the world, I think is actually going to be counterproductive with respect to our relationship with China. A lot of countries now see China as a more reliable trade and investment partner than the United States is. I was in Colombia about a month ago and learned about a lot of Chinese investment that's taking place in that country. China is making a big push to invest more in Latin America and to trade more soybeans with Brazil rather than soybeans from the US Midwest. And so I think it's going to push China to further develop relationships with other emerging markets around the world, be they in Asia, Africa, or South America, and try to reduce their dependence on U.S. trade because they found that that can be very politically contentious in the United States, and trying to find other trade partners might be a way for China to be more successful. That's going to put pressure on U.S. companies in these other locations around the world. They're going to have a more difficult time doing business there. The strategy, I think, of announcing big tariffs and then walking them back is probably more a psychological one. It's a way to sort of tell other countries, look, we're not pleased with you for a variety of reasons. The financial markets respond, the stock markets, the bond markets all respond as a result of that. And then it allows some breathing space for the president to bring the tariffs back down. I'm not sure that's the best strategy to be using because it creates a lot of uncertainty and confusion in the business place. Some companies might say, great, the tariff is now 30% instead of 145%, let's import a lot of goods. Some might say, well, it might get even lower than that after 90 days. I'm not so sure that will happen. So we think we're probably going to see companies adjusting to these 30% tariffs, which, as painful as they are, will be manageable for a lot of companies, both companies exporting from China, companies importing from the United States, consumers in the United States paying a little bit more for their goods, sort of a sharing of the pain. Tariffs are one way to manipulate your economy. Another way to do that is through industrial policy, through supporting certain companies, having regulations that support domestic firms rather than foreign firms, state-owned companies that can compete on a different playing field. Those are much more difficult to change. And tariffs are a number. You can change those percentage. Getting a country to change its own economic policies, industrial policies for its own citizens is much more difficult for any country to ask another one to do.